I think we might be best friends because, dude, this is so wild to me. Same thing with me. I wanted to do it for like 2 years. And then you're having these limiting beliefs like, well, why does it matter? Like, who the hell am I? Right. But then like at the same time, like you get that message, right, from somebody that's like, hey, man, like that really helped me. And you're like, oh, wow. Like people are listening. This is great. And so, I think my favorite quote ever, I use it probably 7 times a day. Kyle Cease, he says, everybody is so worried about what they'll lose because that's quantitative. They don't understand by telling the truth or seeking their truth. They don't understand what they might gain. And everybody can put parameters on, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. What is this person going to think? But when you just lean into everything, that was my quote, my motto for 2019. And it was amazing how the opportunities in the life just kind of like, the shells started coming out. And so, you're building this business, you create this podcast, you create the business, I'm sure it wasn't all roses, right? I'm sure it wasn't perfect. Like, what did you learn along the way to become the CEO, streamline that you are today, put together, right? What did you learn about yourself and, employing people, which for me is probably the thing I care about the most, making sure that my employees are happy and understanding that I serve them, they don't serve me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I learned a lot. I mean, you end up learning a lot through the experience. And I think one of the big things that I learned after interviewing, nearly 100 folks in that first year was that there's 5 key principles that end up making up the successful investor. And if you guys are interested in diving deeper into these, I've put together a nice 20 or 30 page ebook on this subject at theinvestormindset.com/principles.
Mm-hmm.
And
we'll tag that in the show notes too.
So you guys can just click on over there and check it out. It's really valuable. But a couple of those that were really big was that the most successful people get really, really clear on what they're doing. They get really, really clear on why they're doing what they're doing and understand exactly the reason why it's important for them to do that. And then they get really clear on doing 1 or 2 things max. So they're only doing one new thing at a time. In other words, they're succeeding and thriving in one business before they step out and start another business. So I made this mistake myself when I was starting and growing into the commercial side and also launching the podcast at the same time and also working at getting myself out of the day-to-day of my wholesaling business. Because when you're doing that kind of volume, I realized only after stepping out of the day-to-day that I was such an integral piece of that machine working that when I stepped out, things started falling off the machine. The machine started not working the same way. The margins started going down. Started realizing that, wow, I've got to get back in here and re-engineer and re-architect what I'm currently running and make sure that that is a sound business, that is a sound factory, that's a sound machine that can run when I'm not overlooking it and watching it. So that's one of the big things, one of the big takeaways talking to all these folks and my experience is that, sometimes you're going to have big dreams, you're going to have big goals, but it's really important that you get really good at one thing before you move on to the next. I really wanted to get into multifamily a year and a half ago, and I was setting down that path, connecting with phenomenal operators, learning about some of the details, and it ended up being a distraction because I was also running this phenomenal podcast. I was also building, some great content for the audience. I was also building my wholesaling business. And you can do all of these things, but you can only do one of them at a time when you're learning something new. So it's like the best business owners, they might own multiple businesses, but they don't own multiple businesses until they have one really successful business. And then they move on to the next one while that other machine continues running, or they shut it down and they focus on that new thing.